PlayStation. All right, well, welcome back to the IMNerd Podcast. So I just want to start this episode by saying, how are you, Kenny?
How am I? How are you? Actually, I'm doing okay, all things considered. I don't know if I talked about it on the podcast or not, but my house is damn near going under reconstruction. I lost like 5 walls. But yeah, all of that being said, I'm doing pretty good. I literally, right before sitting down to record, just came in from my run, so I haven't had a chance to take a shower yet, so luckily you guys can't smell me. But yeah, I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah, you're doing that like challenge thing or whatever, like run a marathon in a day or some shit. I don't know how it works.
Yeah, it's just called Couch to 5K. It's be a lazy couch piece of shit to running a 5K in like 8 weeks or something.
Nice. So how far in are you? How long has it been?
I'm doing it with like 2 other friends. We are at the end of week 2, I think.
Okay.
So, pretty
week
good.
2, damn, time is flying.
Yeah, that's me. That's all that's going on.
Yeah, same old for me. Just, doing accounting as a day job and watching other things. I want to get into that Star Wars anime at some point.
Oh, yeah.
It just dropped today. Yeah, I think all of it dropped at Jeff Jones' Facebook, and he posted that I believe he watched all of it. So it's kind of like Netflix where they dropped in their series. So he said it was pretty dope.
And that's on Disney Plus, right?
I believe it's on Disney Plus, yeah, because Disney, I feel like they own Star Wars now. They own everything, right?
Yeah, yeah. They might as well.
But yeah, so I do want to get around to doing a podcast episode of that. So I'm going to probably binge it as soon as possible. And from the previews that I've seen, it looks sick. I can only imagine, but it looks fucking sick.
Yeah, I'm going to check that out. Speaking of Disney Plus, I just went through, like I was saying a while back, how I went through all the Marvel movies and we watched Infinity War Endgame. We had an episode on Infinity War. And that after doing that, I was going to go through the shows. I just finished WandaVision.
Oh, damn. So you actually are watching that stuff right now. I didn't even know.
Yeah. I just watched WandaVision so that, at some point we'll definitely talk about that. And I'm going to be watching the other shows as well. So
yeah.
Pretty cool.
Well, yeah, just remember what you saw in WandaVision. We can definitely do an entire episode on that one. And the other ones, Loki and Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yep. And then there's also, I think one just came out called like What If?
Yes, I've been watching that. I kind of stopped after like 4 episodes, but I have been watching it. Every episode is very dark. So I want to know what you think of it when we get around to it, but it's interesting. I'll leave it at that. I like that it's animated though. I like that.
Oh, it's animated? Okay.
They use all the original though for the voice acting. So like Doctor Strange is Benedict Cumberbatch. Like it's actually him.
Oh, that's sick. Yeah. That is really cool.
So it doesn't feel weird when you hear them talking and stuff. But they're animated people. They look very, very close to the actual thing now.
That's what's up. I'm excited to watch that.
Yeah. All right. Real quick, I just want to give a shout out to our patrons over Patreon. Usually we do this at the end of the episode, but I'm going to do it at the beginning of the episode for a little bit, just because.
Just to mix it up.
Yeah, just to mix it up. So.
The mushroom mix up.
Yep. We have our first ever patron, and at the highest tier, Connie. Then we have Austin, Leon, Xavier, Garen, Quest, and Hylian. Thank you guys for subscribing to our Patreon, and these people are at the $20 tier. So we fuck with you because you fuck with us and you help pay the bills. So thanks.
That's what I'm talking about. Right there.
Okay.
Look, I can barely keep my walls intact, all right? My walls all just fell apart. At least let me keep my lights on.
Right. So I want to do listener letters because we actually have 3 from Austin. They all kind of accumulated starting on Sunday, but on Sunday we had our episode featuring Blair, and we don't do listener letters, or at least reading them out on the episodes where we have a guest. So because this is our first opportunity where we can read them, I just want to read them out now because they're all about like the older episodes we've done. So starting with his first one about Kanye, he says, I will admit this was a harder episode for me to listen to because I'm not a huge fan of him, but you guys definitely made it enjoyable to listen to. One thing that stood out was the beginning when you guys talked about how the crazy ones are actually more sane than they seem. It just made me think of how the Joker isn't actually insane. he's considered to have a super sanity, and he's just highly aware. He even knows he's in a comic. That's interesting. I think I've heard that before. The Joker is like breaking the fourth wall in a way, right? Like he's aware that the dimension he's in. I don't know if I ever heard that he wasn't considered crazy though. That's interesting. But yeah, super sanity.
Super sanity. Yeah, no,
you're too self-aware.
It is interesting. It's we touched on it in the Kanye episode, but yeah, I mean, there's even even if somebody is quote unquote crazy or whatever, that person, regardless of whether or not you understand it, they are trying to say something.
Yes.
And I think all too often people just write that off and just say, "Oh, that person's crazy," without taking any effort at all in deciphering what they may be trying to do or trying to say.
And like I said too prior to this, is that crazy people are the ones who tend to change the world, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. You can get crazy people who are like Steve Jobs, and you can get crazy people who are like Hitler. So depending on the level of crazy, in one way or another, they change the world.
Word.
But yeah, Kanye is revolutionary, I feel like, in the music industry. And I feel like a lot of people, still love Kanye despite all the nonsense that he's been going through and dealing with ever since. I don't even know when it really dates back to. Is it really the Taylor Swift moment? Is it when his mom died?
I think that's when it started. I think Taylor Swift is when it started, and then he's done things since then that have turned different people on and off. But that said, that was Austin, right?
Yeah, Austin.
Thanks a lot for listening to the episode, even though it was a topic that you weren't initially interested in, and I'm happy you enjoyed it despite
that's really cool, because we didn't know if people would actually like it at all, because it's not necessarily like Kanye himself isn't a nerd topic, but we nerd out about Kanye. So this was an interesting thing to do. Okay, so his next letter is on the N64 episode. So he says, I remember with the N64, you could tell how the weight difference in cartridges and how you can figure out the quality of the game, graphics and content, while not necessarily the game itself. So basically alluding to how the cartridges had different weight 64. And I don't know, is that a thing? Like,
I did not know that. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't know.
I don't know. And even if I did know that, it's something that I probably have forgotten. I guess like Majora's Mask would be a good example, because that came out pretty late in the N64's lifespan, I would think. And
I think so.
Yeah, because that's like when you needed the expansion pack and all that stuff, or like the whatever that thing was, the red thing that you put.
Yep, the expansion pack. It's like legit 4 megs of RAM.
Really? That's what it did.
It's legit like 4 extra megs of RAM.
Wow. 4 megs. He says, one game I remember playing a lot with my friends was the Toy Soldier shooter, which was a lot of fun. Why do I kind of feel like I remember that too? Toy Soldiers. I don't know.
Off the top of my head, I don't remember. I remember off the top, I don't think I played it. Not that I remember a Toy Soldier game. I don't think I ever played it. That just reminded me
a lot of random shit. Like a lot of random shit.
That did remind me of the Toy Story game, though. I don't think we talked about that, but I did play the Toy Story N64 game for sure.
Played that too. And I sucked at that game. That game was not easy, by the way.
But off the top of my head, I don't think I played a Toy Soldier game.
All right. And his last letter says playing again. So this is about Yu-Gi-Oh, I assume. He says, I do think if old school players came back into the game now, they would have a really good chance. Playing through the grindy formats throughout the years is a huge edge right now. Talking about traveling for tournaments and doing more than just a tournament, what have been some of the craziest stories outside of the tournament that you're there for? Probably be when none of us made day 2. So we took my friend out to a strip club for his birthday. We bought him a dance, and they gave you a sheet to fill that the DJ reads to the club, and we're assholes. Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
That's fucking great.
So, I mean, I have a lot of crazy stories. I mean, there's some of you guys' faves. Some of you guys' some of you guys' faves are hardcore drug addicts, and you would never, ever know. I'm talking about cocaine and mushrooms and all types of shit. And when I was young going to YCSs and stuff, there were times where I would see some things in hotels that I just never thought some of these top players would do. I'm not going to give out any names, but it was definitely eye-opening to see some of the shit that people do that you would never expect. Very, very crazy. But yeah, we've gone out to clubs and stuff like that. We've gotten shit-faced. One of my favorite times going out to a club was in Toronto, YCS Toronto, like 2011 or something. 2011 or 2012, one of those. And I think there's even pictures of that on my Facebook, but I was wearing a tie that night. I used to dress so fucking cringe. But I remember us going out to a club, a bunch of players, and having a good time, and we got really, really drunk. And it feels really good to, I don't know, do that in a place that you're not from. There's just something about that is kind of freeing because like no one really knows you and you don't really care about who might be looking at you because you're probably never going to see them again.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just like a freedom to just being, yourself. But
for me, I don't know if this is the craziest story. This isn't Yu-Gi-Oh, but this is still traveling for tournaments. In 2012, I went to Evo for Street Fighter 4 and King of Fighters 13. And I went by myself because none of my friends went. They all flaked on me. I had 2 friends in particular. I won't say their names, but both of them were like 100% we're going. And then they just didn't go. They were like, nah, we're not going. And then so I already had my ticket bought and everything. And I was like, all right, well, I'm still going. So I went to Evo by myself. And that was an interesting time because I don't know if you're a person that travels to tournaments and stuff, I feel like most people usually travel with friends or meet up with friends there. Whereas I just traveled to Evo, I didn't know anybody there, and I didn't go with anybody, and I didn't meet up with anybody. So I spent 2 weeks in Vegas going in by myself. And then that time in Vegas was really interesting because you meet people, talk to people, and you get into doing a bunch of different things, and, just try to make the most of it because none of your friends are there with you. So it was pretty weird. There was a lot of kind of funny and different things that happened. And I love
Vegas.
It was a fun time. Yeah, it was fun. I made it really fun. I ended up doing a lot of stuff. There's a hotel that has an amusement park on the roof of the hotel.
Yep.
And I remember I went there and I rode like some of the rides. I went to go see Penn and Teller, which are like 2 of my favorite magicians.
Oh yeah, that's right. You do love Penn and Teller, and you got me. Well,
yeah, I love Penn and Teller. Yeah, I did a bunch of crazy shit. I don't know. It was fun, but it was fun.
You were about to say something wild. All right, well, let's get into what this episode is actually about. So now we're done with the introduction. We're going to be talking about the PlayStation 1 today. And this system is what I really grew up on outside of Sega. Right after Sega, it went immediately into the PlayStation 1. And this was huge for me. I don't even remember exactly when the PS1 really came out. I just remember getting the system because, I mean, it had to be early 90s, right? Like it had to be so young, but I got it as soon as it came out. And me and my dad both did. I remember playing the demos before any games. So there was like a demo disc they used to have, and I would just play like a bunch of random games. You get to play like, I don't know, 3 minutes of Tekken. You get to only play with 2 characters in the entire game, and we would just play with those characters constantly over and over again. Who's the one character who's basically Jackie Chan in Tekken?
That's Lei Wulong, I think his name is.
Yes.
He's the cop.
You got to play with him and one other person. I forget who it was, but the demo only let you play with one other person. And so like me and my dad or like me and my friends would just constantly run that back all the time. And he had that one grab where he would like grab you and kick off your body and backflip. And in the old Tekken games, that shit used to send you so far back.
There's also Martial Law, who's based on Bruce Lee.
Yep, I remember him as well. He has the somersaults and stuff, and he like all his weird noises and shit like that. All the Bruce Lee-isms that he would do. Pretty cool stuff back then. But let's get into how the PlayStation 1 even came to be. So a lot of people don't know this, and I didn't notice until I met Medina, one of our mutual friends. But apparently, the PlayStation was never actually supposed to be a thing to begin with.
Well, it was. It was just under a slightly different brand.
Yes, originally... Originally, Nintendo and Sony were working together to develop a CD attachment type of thing for, the next Nintendo console. And Sony went up at CES on the main stage and was like, we have this thing with Nintendo. It's going to be a great partnership. It's going to be a really big deal in the gaming industry. We look forward to working with Nintendo, all this other stuff. And then Nintendo went up after them and was like, we are not partnering with Sony. We're actually partnering with Philips. And what this did was not only did they slight Sony, it created Nintendo's biggest competitor in the world.
Yep.
And it's really interesting how that works because without that, you don't get Nintendo and Sony going at it for the next fucking 20-something. Like it's been 25 years since the PlayStation 1 came out, I think.
Yeah, look, before Microsoft dips in with Xbox, if Nintendo and Sony work together, would there have been a competition for them for 15, 10, what I mean? Like there would have been no...
And it's crazy because not only was it competition, but like PlayStation became bigger than Nintendo, like by a good amount. It was the biggest home console in the world, and kind of crazy because it started out a business deal going bad. Like imagine you creating your biggest competitor. Like that is concept of that is wild in itself. Like you slight someone and it causes them to say, fuck it, we'll just do it ourselves. And then they actually are successful because at the time, Nintendo was so big at the time coming off the SNES that it was unsightly to think that like anyone could even challenge them in the gaming sector.
I mean, they revitalized gaming. Gaming was dead. Like everybody talks about like the gaming recession or whatever, but like gaming really was dead. And Nintendo brought that shit back. So they were on top of the world. They had no competition, and then
then they just create competition.
Yep.
But that's a good thing though, because competition is good. As we all know, competition is good for us, for the consumers. You know, we got the we got to play N64 as we talked about episode, and it had a ton of fantastic games. And we also got to play PlayStation. But some of the things about the PlayStation. So the very first PlayStation, I'm just gonna read off some things that I found in an article. The very first PlayStation, you needed a memory card to save your progress, and a memory card had 128 kilobytes in space. So just to put it in perspective, you could not just save games without a memory card back in the day, which is so wild. If you wanted to save your game, you had to go out and buy this thing that was, I think memory cards, they weren't expensive. I want to say they were like $20, but you did have to have them, and they did run out of space. So
yes, they did.
A lot of times I would be playing a game like Final Fantasy something, because Final Fantasy games had 3 discs back in the day, like 7, 8, and 9. They all have like 4 to 3 discs per game. And the save files for those games took a bunch of blocks, as it was called, on the memory card. And yeah, if you used up all your blocks, you had to get a memory card. So I would just have a fucking stack of memory cards to save all my different games, and then I would have to label them so that I knew what was on one, because I played a lot of different PlayStation games. And even though I didn't always like beat all the games, I still played so many, so you needed save data for every single one. It was obnoxious.
I hated the memory cards when I was younger, because
it's so bad,
especially coming off Nintendo, because I had Nintendo, like Super Nintendo and N64, and at the time, you know, you're a kid, you don't fully understand the technology, but you know, N64, you know, the game just saved on the game on the cartridge. But then for PlayStation, you needed memory cards, and I remember being so annoyed at them for some of the reasons you said. In hindsight, they actually weren't that bad. Like, I kind of miss memory cards in some ways, but like nowadays,
it's weird, right? Like, we want to take our save data with us sometimes. Like on my PS4, for example, it's annoying how it is now. Like, you actually have to do a lot of nonsense just to get your save data from one place to another. Whereas back in the day, despite the fact that very limited memory, you could just take your memory card and play to a friend's game system and pick up where you left off, like nothing ever went
like
wrong.
if I'm like, for whatever reason, I'm like, oh, you know, I want to go spend a weekend at Fraser's house, and I know Fraser has a PS4, and I know Fraser has Kingdom Hearts 3. I'm like, oh, cool, I'll just bring my memory card, so to speak, and I'll play Kingdom Hearts 3. But I can't do that. Like, I have to do a process to like get my memory onto his system.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's actually interesting how, on one hand, it's very primitive, the memory card idea, but then it's also pretty ease of use. Like in 2021, if we did have that same system, I mean, granted, they would be a lot bigger. They would just be fucking memory sticks, like 256 gigabytes,
flash drives or whatever. I mean, here's the thing, though. There's no reason why a flash drive shouldn't work. They set the OS in the systems up in a way to fucking annoy the shit out of you. Like.
Yes, the same reason why certain headphones don't work on the PS4. And like I have Beats headphones. I remember when I first bought them, I was so happy because I was like, oh, I'll be able to use these as like a microphone and as, you know, headphones for my PS4. And I plugged them into my PS4 controller, was ready to play Monster Hunter World. I went to plug my Beats into my PS4 controller so that I could use them as both of those things. And it didn't work. So then obviously I go to Google and I'm like, Beats with PS4. And then there's all these articles saying, oh yeah, you can 100% do it. And then there's a bunch of other articles saying you cannot do it. And so it was really confusing. Then eventually I found out that Sony had just recently in 2018, I want to say, or maybe at the end of 2017, patched the fucking system where you could not use certain headphones with the brand.
Love it.
My Beats headphones just do not work with the PS4 controller, with the PS4. It's really, really stupid. So then I had to buy another pair of $100 Sony headphones, PlayStation Gold, which were really good, but I got warned by my one friend who plays Yu-Gi-Oh, Kamal, that they just break for no reason. And I was like, well, honestly, like whatever. I got them for like 30% off. I think I paid $70 for them. They were originally $100. I got them for like 30% off. I said, whatever. Hopefully they'll last as long as I need them. Why the fuck did these headphones actually break after like 8 months for no reason? Like nothing happened to them. They just stopped working, like he said. And I was really annoyed about that.
That is so frustrating.
$350 for a pair of Beats headphones on Black Friday. I got them. I might have got them a little cheaper, but I remember it was Black Friday. I bought some Beats headphones, not with the intention of using them with my PS4, but just because they were high quality headphones. They have a lot of bass. I like bass, and I just wanted them. Like I just fucking wanted them. I always buy something on Black Friday, so I was like, oh, this is going to be perfect. I can use this on PS4, and then I just couldn't. So that whole thing was annoying.
So that's the thing. They just software lock you, but you know.
Yeah. So anyway, so we were talking about memory cards. The original controller that launched with the PlayStation,
the Boomerang,
it did not have analog sticks.
No, it did not.
So that was a feature added later with the DualShock controllers, they call it now.
Yeah, DualShock 1. I actually need to pick up one. I've been meaning to, because I love PlayStation controllers, specifically 1 and 2. PS3 controllers are tolerable, but PS3 and PS4 controllers, I personally find a lot of issues with, and I feel like they have higher failure rates, and things on them just tend to stop working quicker. My
PS4 controller right now, that it has a drift on the left analog stick that just...
Yeah.
I mean, I can't use it for Monster Hunter. When I was playing Monster Hunter World at the end of its life, I could not. It was like my character starts moving and you can get hit. Like it's just the whole thing. But yeah.
And for me, I remember my PS3 controller. I've owned maybe 6 PS3 controllers, and every single one, the R2 gets loose and jiggly. And
yep, I know exactly what you're talking about. It feels disgusting too.
Yeah, it just gets loose and jiggly, and it just ruins things. So anyway, that said, the DualShock 1, the gray, it's basically a PS2 controller, but it's gray.
Yeah.
For the PS1. I love the DualShock 1 and the DualShock 2, which is the PS2 controller. They're 2 of my favorite controllers of all time. Like Same. I love those
also,
controllers.
When I went back, so after using a DualShock controller for a very long time, when you go back and try to use the original PlayStation controller, it feels like a toy.
Yes.
It's so outrageously light to the touch. Like it feels like nothing. It has no weight to it whatsoever. It's a very
because it also didn't have rumble, whereas the DualShock 1, in addition to adding 2 sticks, it had rumble.
Yeah. I will say this though, I fucking hate Rumble. I don't use Rumble in any game I play. I don't need it. I don't like it. We'll probably talk about this a little later. But I
love Rumble.
I had some awful experiences with Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, but yeah, I'll pass on Rumble.
I love Rumble. Rumble.
So the PlayStation introduced, or I guess really popularized, CDs for games. And so it says the CD was one of the biggest advantages the PlayStation had over the competition. While the content on a cartridge loaded faster on the console, the CD gave developers a whopping 650 megabytes of space, which is not a lot today, but back in the day, a game cartridge had about 12 megabytes to 15 megabytes of space. So that was a huge thing because you were able to load in all of this music, and like the PlayStation 1 was a CD player. And, if you pulled the cartridge out of anything Nintendo while it was playing, that like your game is freezing. Like that game is
you're fucked.
Like that. And if your system got hit the wrong way, like sometimes, which is really fucking annoying, but if you're playing your N64 and your dad happens to walk past and trips over a cord and fucking kicks the system or like slides it across, whatever, it will just freeze the entire game. So wherever you were doing on Ocarina of Time, if you were in the middle of a boss fight or in the middle of the water temple and you hadn't gotten a chance to save in a while because you've just been trying to find these fucking silver keys and your game freezes, guess what? You're fucked. Yep.
What's crazy, how much bigger those discs are. It's crazy considering how much more space they had. That Final Fantasy VII was still 3 fucking discs.
And that's one of the points is that even though that the PlayStation had all of the space on a disc, Legend of Dragoon, I believe, is a 4-disc game. Final Fantasy VII is a 3-disc game. Final Fantasy VIII is a 4-disc game, and Final Fantasy IX is a 4-disc game. So a lot of the games, Metal Gear Solid is also a 2-disc game.
The reason why I think I'm not, I don't have anything up. The reason why, though, based on my experience growing up and looking back on it, is that I think, like you said, they had higher quality audio in the game, which obviously takes up more space.
Yeah.
So the audio was better, and also a lot of PlayStation 1 games would fit in FMVs. Which basically are basically higher graphics, but
Final Fantasy VIII's
cutscenes.
opening that we talked about multiple times on this podcast
FF8's
now.
opening, exactly. Whereas N64 didn't really have stuff like that. So that said, interestingly, the games themselves, like what you did in the games, weren't necessarily bigger. Right. But the games just had higher quality audio and had like different options for cutscenes and stuff like that.
Yeah, now this is not because the N64 is technically the generation kind of after the PlayStation 1, right? Like N64 comes out after PS1, right?
Yeah, but I think they share a generation. I don't remember exactly which one came out first, but they're like N64 and PS1 are the direct competitors.
Okay, I just know N64 came out later. So when I think about N64 and PlayStation, I always do think about them together because they were running concurrently. Like I wouldn't put it would be unfair to put PS2 against N64 because it's not even.
Yeah, for PS2, it's like that versus GameCube.
Yes, that versus GameCube. But PlayStation 1 and N64, when I think about them, I don't necessarily think of the N64 as having, even though like the cartridges had, I guess much lower space to a kid, to someone playing the game. One, you don't know anything about that.
Yeah,
and you don't fucking care because when you play Ocarina of Time looks amazing. Like at least back then. Even and Ocarina of Time had cutscenes. They weren't
like FF8, but
they weren't FF8 level. But like even the beginning of the game where Ganondorf is running off with Zelda on the horse, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that looks good for that time, like specifically in context. Now, if you go and load it up on YouTube right now, whatever. But back then, it looked no different than like Tomb Raider and her fucking polygonal ass body,
triangle titties.
Yeah, triangle titties and all of that. So I'm saying all this to say that the systems are very comparable in a sense that despite the fact that there was so much more space on these discs, the 64 did hold up as far as graphics were concerned, at least for me. Like I never really cared. I wasn't a graphics whore as a kid, is what I'm saying. Yeah. I liked Final Fantasy because of graphics, but it wasn't like the thing that made me play a game or not play a game.
Interestingly, I wonder if the PS1, and there's probably games that did this, if they instead sacrificed the better audio, like what if they made a 64 game for the PS1? So basically all the limitations of the 64, but then utilized all that extra space. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That could have been pretty nutty.
That would have been pretty cool, yeah. I mean, if the companies actually did not merge, but like collaborated on gaming, we would have gotten a lot of that. Maybe Sony would have influenced Nintendo to go to discs earlier than GameCube, because that's when they did the discs, right? GameCube is actually discs.
But even then, Nintendo's got to throw their little spice in there. Like they use these tiny ass discs.
Yes, yes, we will have a GameCube episode and talk about those. But
PlayStation 1. My bad. You can't go ahead.
No. Go, I was.
I know. I was going to say because I didn't talk about how I got introduced to it.
Yeah. How did you get introduced to the play? Like, I don't remember my first memory. I just remember my dad having it for me. Like, it was in a box. I was super happy about it. I feel like I got it on Christmas, and then I just was playing demos until I got a real game. I didn't have a real game for a bit, but I did have demos for a little while, and then we got real games, and I was just like, oh my God, gaming is the best thing ever. I didn't want to do anything except get home from school and just play the PlayStation 1. So how did it happen for you?
For me, I grew up Nintendo kid. My dad, as long as I remember, SNES was in my house. Like, I was born and SNES already existed. So SNES was there, NES was there, and then I know we got the N64 like as soon as it came out, because my dad at that time played video games. Not much. Like I wouldn't call my dad a gamer. Like I wouldn't say he was ever a gamer, but and like the way that the term has become, like how we are now. But he played video games often. Like he would have friends over. They would play Madden and FIFA. He played Donkey Kong and Mario. So he got the N64 for himself and for his kid, me. But we didn't have a PlayStation. I played the PS1 whenever we would go to his friend's house. We would go to his friend's house. It was like a hunting buddy. And that's how I first got introduced to the PS1, is he had like Crash Bandicoot and stuff. And so I played all the Crash Bandicoots at this guy's house. And that's how I got into Crash Bandicoot. And then my next experience with the PS1 was when my mom had this boyfriend that she was dating for a while. And when he lived with us, he had a PS1 and he didn't let me use it. So I was only able to use it like when he was asleep. Because he was like, you're not allowed to touch it, because I was a kid. But what's funny when I look back on it is I knew how to use it and control it and hook it up and unhook it better than he did. Because I was always doing that. I was always messing with consoles.
Remember
and the
wiring.
Three
cords you had, the red, white, and yellow cords?
In
the back of the TV.
He was always like an idiot and did it. I don't know. I knew how to handle the console better than he did, but it was funny.
Too.
because he was like
6 years old.
Yeah, he was like, "Oh, you're a kid, you can't touch it." So I actually didn't own a PS1 until after the PS2. Me personally, like I've played PS1s, my dad's friends, my mom's boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to get access to it, and I would like borrow Final Fantasy from a friend. But I didn't really play a lot of PS1 games in my own free time until after I had a PS2, and I would play the PS1 games on the PS2. Yeah. And I went back and I played like Tekken 3 and Spyro and all the PS1 games that I wound up talking about. But before the PS2, I beat all the Crash Bandicoots at my dad's friend's house. I played like FF7 on my mom's boyfriend's PS1 while he was asleep. Like that was my and he had this Magic the Gathering game, which by the way was not Magic the Gathering.
Oh my god, I think I played the same fucking game where it's like a wand.
Dude,
it was a rant.
I don't know.
It wasn't Magic the Gathering.
It was not Magic the Gathering.
It was a fucking rant. I played the same game. And it was at my dad's girlfriend's house when I was a kid, and I don't know why she had this fucking game, but it was really weird.
It was so weird. I played this what's fucked up though is I swear to God I probably put 100 hours in this Magic the Gathering game, and God. I can't tell you what the game is, how it's played, because I remember because I just didn't have. Because I had Nintendo all the time, I played it all the time. And because the PS1, I could only play it when everybody was asleep, and I had to sneak and play it, and what was there. I would put this Magic the Gathering game in and just fucking press buttons and try to do stuff for hours.
I did do the same thing as far as press buttons and try to do things, but I was quickly like, okay, this is nonsense.
I played that game so fucking much, and I to this day cannot tell you what that game is about. I can tell you that it is not the card game, though.
No, it is awful. But I remember discs, so I did not take care of my first PlayStation. I was terrible. I mean, I was a kid. I was under 10 years old, like a good amount under 10 years old, I imagine. But the first PlayStation had those black discs.
Yeah, the black backs.
Yeah, and apparently that there was no actual rhyme or reason for them being black.
Yeah, they just did it because it was cool.
It was just because Sony was like, this is fucking cool, and marketing, and it worked. I mean, the PlayStation 1 is the first ever home console to surpass 100 million units sold globally. So, like, you know, PlayStation 1 is a huge revolutionary system using discs, and you can pop open the game system. You know, you can literally pop it open while your game is playing. And you can still play your game, but the music will stop. I don't know why, but I used to do, I don't know. I was like
I used to do shit like that too.
A sciencey kid, I guess is what you would call us. Like we were.
Like, you could play until the next load screen. Like, if you were in the middle of a Tekken 3 fight, you could take the disc out and finish the fight, and then put the disc back in.
You could pop it back in, and then it would continue. Like, it's so interesting how that worked. And I would always wonder when because 64 came out later, like how come 64 didn't have that same type of functionality, but I couldn't wrap my mind around it. But I would always like fuck around with my PlayStation, and I would like pop the system open, spin the disc myself with my finger like I was DJing it. The music would start skipping and stuff. Then I would lift the CD off of it. Then I'll put it back down. I was bad. I was a fucking bad kid.
That's great, though. That's great. The one something you mentioned that I think is important about Sony's success is because they weren't a gaming company first, they were really smart. I think one of the biggest things that made their sales go through the roof for the PS1 and then the PS2 was the fact that the PS1 was a CD player. And that was just big, because you were getting a game console that's also a CD player. Yep. And when the PS2 comes out, it's a DVD player. And dude, the PS2 was either the same price or cheaper than DVD players.
The same thing with the fucking Blu-ray players and the PS3.
Yeah.
It's the same exact thing. Blu-ray players were so expensive. Granted, I don't really think people really care about Blu-rays anymore because we live in the age of streaming. But the actual price of a PlayStation compared to what it also allowed you to play was always cheaper than the other device. And I just found that to be, I mean, outside of CD players, you can go to like Walgreens and get one for $20, which I did all the time until they would break. But
in the case of the PS1, you got to compare it more so to a radio. Yes. A radio, like a stereo you would have hooked up in your house.
Yep. You could loudly blast it through your TV, which was really cool. And I did do that sometimes. Like I would I don't know, I would just play random shit. But so one of the other points is that the production for the PS1 ceased in 2004, so it was on the shelves for a decade. So I guess it came out in 1994.
Okay.
So it comes out in 1994, but then it stops in 2004, production on the actual system. But games were still being produced until 2006, which sounds wild to me.
That's because it's always the sports games Like the
Okay.
Maddens and the FIFAs. Like I
Right.
know I can't tell you exactly which one, but I'll just use the PS3 for example. When like the new FIFA for the PS3 comes out, they'll make like let's say it's FIFA 2008. They'll make FIFA 2008 for the PS2, but it'll actually use the engine of FIFA 2007. It won't be FIFA 2008. It'll, you know what I mean? And like,
Yeah.
but they'll just push like FIFA and Madden, etc.
just to
on
get
the older
just a solid
consoles.
game, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a random fact, and this is the last one that I have before we start diving into individual games and just talking about those. So I didn't know this, and I did play this game briefly, but is Gran Turismo is the best-selling game for the PlayStation 1.
Yep.
Which
I did know this.
I didn't know that. That's so random to me.
I don't know, man. Gran Turismo has, in hindsight, become one of my most hated games.
Oh,
And I'll tell you, not anything wrong with Gran Turismo itself, but we had a day on my stream where we went through every single solitary console and
Real
we
quick,
tried
shout
to
out Critical Hit Plus, where Kenny streams at on a
on Twitch. Yep, twitch.tv, Critical Hit Plus. So we had a day we were hanging out. It was like me, my cousin Stango, who we had on. He's was a top Melee player. Doesn't compete that much right now. But it was like me, him, and a bunch of my other friends. And we were guessing. We would go through every single console and guess the top 5 best-selling games on each console, which was just like a fun thing to do. And we'd be like, okay, so N64, what do you think the top 5 best-selling games were? And we would list them, and we would look, and then we would see how right we were. What we learned during this experiment is that if Gran Turismo released on your console, it was in the top 5 best-selling game. Gran Turismo sells so fucking hard. I don't know why, but we would like on. I don't remember, like, let's say it was PS2. It was like PS2. I don't remember exactly what the top 5 games were, and I don't remember exactly what we said. But I remember, like, I would say something like, oh, probably like KH2, FF10, like what, like those types of games, right?
Yeah. God of War, shit like that.
God of War, maybe like Tekken Tag tournament or something. And then, like, we get to the list, and it's like Gran Turismo 4, and I'm like, what? What do you mean? Like, Gran Turismo sells so many fucking copies. And I'm gonna be honest, growing up, I don't think I really knew any, like, nobody played that game. I don't know who bought Gran Turismo, but I knew like one person ever that had Gran Turismo. It's like the best selling game of all time. I don't understand.
We deny your existence.
100%. But I did know that. Fuck Gran Turismo. Even though Gran Turismo was not a bad game, but fuck that.
No. It's funny, when the PlayStation 2 first came out, one of the first games that I played on the PS2, I think it was a demo. It was a demo. Was Gran Turismo whatever, and it looked so good. Because remember, Sony has always been pushing graphics. That's like they realized with the PlayStation 1, holy shit, people really go up for the whole graphics thing. So when the PS2 came out, Gran Turismo demo, you know, you had some crazy Ferraris and Mercedes, and they had these shiny ass polishes on the cars, and it just looked really, really upscale, like really, really good stuff. And when I was watching a video before this podcast of PlayStation 1 games, just to kind of see what some of them look like, because I forgot it's been 25 years. I saw Gran Turismo on PlayStation 1, and even that looked pretty good for the time. Like the cars, the actual cars, the models, they looked pretty damn good. So I don't know. I don't know who was playing them. Like, I literally have no idea who said, you know what, pop that Gran Turismo in. But
they sold so well. They
sold an insane number of copies somehow. So kudos to Gran Turismo for being the number 1 selling game for the PlayStation 1.
You would have never guessed.
Never. Ever. The list of games that I have here, I'm actually going to read out the list of games that I wrote down off the top of my head that I like really, really loved. And I'm sure I'm missing some, but I'm just going to read these off. So these are the games that I remember really playing hardcore as a kid on the PlayStation 1. Legend of Dragoon, Mega Man 8, Mega Man Legends, Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9, Tekken 3, Legend of Lagaya, Fighting Force, Tomb Raider, Spyro the Dragon, Crash Bandicoot, Soul Reaver, Legacy of Kain, Xenogears, Metal Gear Solid, Resident Evil, Chrono Cross, Final Fantasy Tactics, Spider-Man, Twisted Metal, Parappa the Rapper, and I fucking have Gran Turismo listed down here because I just played the demo and I would like make cars, but I would never actually race. Like, I knew at a very early age that I just liked fucking design, I guess, because I would literally make my car. I would just stare at it and rotate it and move it all kinds of different ways, give it all these crazy cool decals and stuff. And then I would just be like, you know what? That's it. That's all I want to do.
That's it.
And I turn that shit right off and put Final Fantasy in and go about my day.
On that note, on for Grand Theft Auto, and when GTA 5 came out, that was like the first GTA I really, really liked. Like I played 3 and Vice City back in the day, but
Yeah.
those games, I don't know, I never beat them. Like I turned them on, kill 1,000 people, run from the cops, and you turn the game off. Like that's what you do in GTA. Like GTA was a party game. Like GTA was a game you would have friends over, and you guys would take turns, like go out and kill everybody, and then when you get caught by the cops or die, you give the controller to the next person. Like that's what GTA was to me my whole life.
You sound fucking crazy right now.
No, stop. It's so true.
No, but here's the funny part. I've done that with my best friend Eric. Like we did exactly what you just described.
Yes.
We would mass murder human beings in Grand Theft Auto, and then we would pass the controller after it would say busted or fucking like wasted when you died.
100%.
And I remember in Grand Theft Auto games, you couldn't swim for a while. So if you went in the water, if for any reason, if your body touched fucking water, you were wasted.
You were wasted.
Dead. You were dead as shit. Your character sank to the bottom of the Schuylkill. If you touch water if you want to. Don't you ever even touch water.
So every GTA before 5, I didn't really play, like, in terms of story or the whole game. But 5, I actually played the whole game. And anyway, the reason why I bring it up is just what you were saying, designing cars. I spent so much time like designing my fucking car in GTA 5. I designed the shit out of my car.
It's a really big part of the game.
Yep.
But it's funny that both of us, and look at how we turned out. We're not murderous individuals.
Nah.
We don't want to go out and kill anyone. But you know how the media tried to push that narrative on us.
They tried. Dude, all the time you'd go over someone's house, and I don't know, you'd just be bored. You'd be like, oh, what do you want to do? And I've played every party game ever, and you boot up Grand Theft Auto and just. Yeah,
drop a tank from the sky and start running over humans.
You just kill shit. Yeah.
Yeah, but and people start running from you and they talk back. Like I give a shit. I remember one guy I would commandeer his car, fucking yank him out his car and get in it, and he would like I give a shit. And I used to love hearing him say that for some reason because I was a child.
But yeah, every game you mentioned is fucking good. Crash Team Racing I see is on this list. Crash Team Racing is really good. My problem with Gran Turismo, for example, is that I always like Mario Kart.
This is not the Gran Turismo podcast. By the way.
It's not. No, it's not.
So we're about to get the fuck off that subject.
I know, but my point is, like, Crash Team Racing and Mario Kart, to me, were always like, these are just better racing games.
Yes.
Like, they're just more fun.
Yeah, they're less real. Who the fuck wants to play? Who wants to drive in a like Need for Speed even is better because it was unrealistic a bit. But like Gran Turismo was literally real life driving.
But I get it. There's some people that are really into that. But for me, it's like, I don't know. I want to be a fucking Bandicoot and throw.
Yeah, I want to fly. Like let me get my little Diddy Kong racing boat thing or something. I don't know. I never really like racing games, even when they aren't exactly realistic. I
got you though. We'll move off Gran Turismo. I got you. This is in reference to Spyro and demos.
Okay.
So Spyro the Dragon, I think, is one of the best PS1 games. I think that game's fucking amazing.
Period, because of nostalgia and because we grew up on it. I fucking love Spyro. Can I just say that podcast?
Say it.
Like I fucking love Spyro the Dragon.
Spyro is so good. And so I spent so many hours playing the Spyro demo. Before I had access to the game, I played the Spyro demo for an untold amount of hours, and it would frustrate me so much because there's a part in a demo where there's a guy that has a hot air balloon, and you talk to him, and he's like, oh, hey, how you doing, blah, 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 this is a demo, the next world is right here, I can take from this hot air balloon, but you need the whole game. And I would just be like, but the rest of the game is right there.
Yes. Yep.
And so I spent so many hours trying to glitch, or hack, or just force my way through. I'm like, because in my head, realistically, in the demo, the rest of the game wasn't right there. But in my head, the rest of the game was right there. And if I could just get on that hot air balloon, I could play the rest of Spyro.
You make me realize how brilliant the marketing was for Sony back then, because demos really were marketed so well in that way. A lot of them ended like that, where you get to a really critical moment, and it would just be like, all right, for the rest, buy the rest of the game.
Yep. And I tried. So I spent so many hours. I have more memories. Basically, that memory of the Spyro demo is stronger to me than me actually playing and beating Spyro. That demo memory, because of how long I played the demo before having the game, and just wanting, I can get the whole game if I can just make it to this hot air balloon.
So the interesting thing about Spyro the Dragon for me is that before now games, when you 100% them, they tell you like there's rewards and trophies and stuff like that in games now, right? Back in the day, I 100%ed every Spyro game. The first 3 that were on PlayStation, I believe, I 100%ed them. And I mean, I was a kid, and I collected every single jewel, every shard. And I remember one of the Spyro games, I think it was Spyro 2. When you 100% the game, you get his power-up mode permanently. So like there's this mode that he gets where he gets super strong and he starts shooting out these gigantic fucking fireballs and he can fly. Like he can just freely fly. Spyro usually can't fly. But he can like freely fly when he's powered up. And so when you 100% the game, you unlock that version of him. So you could do like New Game Plus and you're like all powerful. And I remember New Game Plus and Spyro after 100%ing the game and just going around. And I don't know. I don't know what the attachment was to that game because
it's just fun. It's just a good ass game.
Yeah, like I loved it, but I would go around super powered up and just shooting gigantic fireballs at everything, and then you killed them so quick. Like all the bosses that normally you'd have to go around behind them and shoot fire in their ass to like beat them, you could just spam gigantic meteor fireballs out your mouth and just fly around and not deal with it. And it was, I don't know, it just made the game fun because it was like breaking the game.
Yeah.
But it was like hard to do. It was like even with Sonic the Hedgehog. I did the same thing with a lot of those games back in the day where I would like unlock Supersonic and all that stuff and do whatever you needed to do.
It feels good.
Yeah.
It feels good because you do feel like you're breaking the game, but it's an intentional thing. It's nice.
It's intentional. Yeah, they let you get that power up permanently. Same thing with Crash Bandicoot. I'm a big Crash Bandicoot fan. It's actually the mascot for the PlayStation 1. And I played the first 3 Crash Bandicoot games on the PlayStation 1. I played all of them. I 100%ed all of them. I loved everything about Crash. It was basically like Mario for people who weren't big into Mario, I feel like. Because I feel
Crash was sick.
If you were a Mario fan, I can imagine that some people, especially if they were older than us, like probably like teenagers, they probably thought it was just like a ripoff or whatever. Because you jump on top of enemies' heads, that's how you beat a lot of them.
Yeah,
like it had that whole like jumping on boxes was a big part of it. So it was blatantly Mario inspired. But for me, someone who didn't grow up on Mario, I fell in love with that game so hard, like the whole series.
Crash is really good. Like I said, I played every single time I went to my dad's friend's house. They would set me up in like this little room, and he'd have his PS1, and I would just play Crash Bandicoot. And I played all the Crash Bandicoots at that guy's house.
Remember Tiny, the big ass like the diesel version of Crash?
Yep, the Broly Crash.
Yeah, and those levels where you got on that little tiger and you went really fast and you couldn't stop. I fucking hated those levels. Those levels are so crazy. And there'd be like Chinese dragons coming at you and shit.
Real quick on Spyro, I have a story I want to tell that I'm embarrassed about. Okay, I'm ashamed of, I should say, ashamed. So, basically, in terms of Spyro, I don't know if I ever owned it. I think I always rented it. So this one, Blockbuster existed. So after I got past the demo days, I rented Spyro and I beat Spyro 1. Like, just always renting it. I beat Spyro 1, and that's also how I beat Spyro 2. And I also rented Spyro 3, but I'm pretty sure I never beat Spyro 3. I played Spyro 3, but I'm fairly positive I never beat Spyro 3. I only beat 1 and 2. But anyway, here's the point that I'm getting to. One day, I go to Blockbuster, and I rent, I think, like 2 games. Let's just say it was Spyro 2 and 3. And one of them just didn't work. And mind you, I'm a kid. So one of them just didn't work, and I was so angry and so frustrated at Blockbuster for stealing my money. They let me rent a game that didn't work. I took the other game that did work, and I fucking scratched the shit out of the back of that disc. God. I took like quarters and shit and was like scratching the back of the disc.
About PlayStation 1 is that the discs were fragile, and I used to use alcohol pads to get my games to work, but some of them would become so ruined that they would never be functional again.
So in hindsight, I remember it didn't even take that much long afterwards. I felt so bad about this. I was so ashamed of myself. But I remember I was so angry at Blockbuster for stealing my money and letting me rent a game. Because they would say, we test the games and make sure they work. You guys fucking took my money and let me rent a game that just did not work. And so I destroyed the back of a disc of one of the Spyro games. And I just fucking sent that shit back. I was like, fuck you, Blockbuster.
I ruined so many games. So a big part of me being a child was...
But I was ashamed of it. I just want to say one more time. I was ashamed of it, Fraser.
Whatever.
Ashamed later. I can't believe I did that. I feel so bad. Anyway, go ahead.
Fucking stop. You goddamn apology. No one cares.
Fuck you!
a big part of being a kid and having a PlayStation 1 is not understanding responsibility on those discs. And I would leave those discs out. I wouldn't put them back in the case like ever. I was terrible. I was a terrible caretaker of my PlayStation. So I would play Final Fantasy 7 and I would lose like disc 3 and I would have to fucking destroy my room trying to find where the hell a disc was. I would leave the disc just sitting out on my entertainment set, and they would collect dust and scratches and all types of shit. At one point, there was just a stack of CDs in my room, and it was just all my PlayStation games. And my dad was like, "Where's Madden?" I was like, "I don't know. It's in that pile somewhere." And he was so pissed.
My one friend Medina used to make fun of me because he used to say like I had like the stack. Because I would have a stack, it would be PlayStation 1 games and CDs. Like it would be like a DMX CD and 50 Cent, etc. And PlayStation 1 games
or something like
in there. It would just be a stack, and he'd be like, "You don't take care of your games, like you just have them in a stack."
Yep, it was so bad to the point my dad ended up buying me a CD storage like binder.
Yep,
like that
I remember
DJs
those.
would have. Yeah, he bought me a binder for my PlayStation 1 discs because he realized I wasn't going to open each individual case and put them in, but maybe if I had this binder thing, because he saw how I was with my Yu-Gi-Oh cards, I guess. Maybe if I had this binder thing, like I would, put my discs in there. And I actually did do that. Like for a while, I took really good care of my discs by having them in this gigantic binder thing that had all my PlayStation 1 games. And I used to take pride in just how many games I had. I just had so fucking many. And I would set it all up all nicely. Like page 1 would be like Final Fantasy 7, and page 2 would be Final Fantasy 8, and then 9, and then Legend of Dragoon, and Legend of Lagaya, and everything like that. I was big into that. But
did you play Parappa the Rapper?
I did. I had that on my list as one of the games. So I didn't beat it or anything, but I played a little bit. My cousin David was really big into Parappa the Rapper. And I remember the demo, kick, punch, it's all in your mind. If you want to test, like it's just like the whole thing, the little onion teaching you and everything. But Parappa the Rapper was amazing back in the day.
Yeah, that game was really good. I'm just going in my head, I'm going through different games.
Yeah, that was one of the first rhythm games that I've ever played, if not the first.
That was, I think that was my introduction to rhythm games.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of some other games. Obviously, Resident Evil.
Yeah, so I want to talk about Resident Evil for a little bit, because the main one that I played was Resident Evil 3, Nemesis.
That's actually the first one I ever beat.
Okay, you beat it. Good for you. I did not have that experience. I do not share that experience. That is not me. I am not him. So I decided that when all of the people in my house were gone, I don't know what the event was, what the function was, but I was in a house completely home alone. And I decided to turn off every single light in my house, and it was like 10 p.m. So it was dark outside too. I turned off every single light in my house, and I loaded up Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. And I said, you know what? I want the full experience. I don't know what type of sadism I was into. Like, I was a fucking masochistic
This
kid.
This is how you got to do it.
But I went in my room and I fucking closed my own door. I turned the volume up really loud and I started playing Resident Evil 3 Nemesis.
You're not allowed to play Resident Evil with the lights on.
I tell you, dog, when I tell you that the first time Nemesis comes out, he's like, stars. I fucking bolted out of my house and left all the doors open. I fucking bolted. So my room was upstairs. I opened my own door, ran down the stairs as fast as I skipped so many steps. I ran down the stairs so fucking fast, ran out my front door, left my screen door open, my main door open, everything. And people who were outside were looking at me as this child literally runs out of this house, like freaked the fuck out. I wasn't screaming or anything, but I was just scared. And they were like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah." They're like, "What's wrong?" I was like, "Nothing."
You can't.
I would start like slowly walking back towards my house, but I would get to the steps and I would just kind of stare inside my house and look up the steps and see if something was like in my room.
That's fucking amazing.
And the annoying part is, you could see flickering lights in my room because the game was still playing. So even though there was nothing in my room, it looked like something was going on in my room because it was just flickering lights and all the lights in the entire house were out. So it looked like a fucking haunted house.
Oh, that's so hype.
So that happened so bad to me to the point where I was sitting on the steps when my parents got home and it was super awkward. Like I was just outside on the steps and they were like, "What the hell? Like, why are you outside?" And I was like, my game messed up and I got scared." And they're like, "What the fuck? Like, you're so, what is going on?" So it was a whole thing.
That's fucking amazing.
I was terrified and I never, ever went back to that game.
Damn. My first experience with the game was much different. So RE3 was my first Resident Evil that I played. But I played it over my uncle's house. I went to my uncle's house, and I think it was when Resident Evil 3 just came out. And we both like sat on the bed and we played all of Resident Evil 3. And the game's short. We beat it in one, like we beat it that night. And I remember I used to say that my whole life. I used to say that as like an accomplishment. Like, yeah, I beat Resident Evil 3 in one night. Not realizing when I was a kid that Resident Evil are just short fucking games. Like, me beating it in one night wasn't that special because Resident Evil games are short.
No, I will never know.
Yeah, well, they're just really short. And when I compare it to things like Zelda and Final Fantasy, the fact that I beat Resident Evil in one night, I was like, yeah, I'm so good. I beat it in one night.
Those games are also exceptionally long, but yes, I do get your point. Like, you really can't beat those games in one night unless you do like a 24-hour playthrough and you speed through it.
Yeah, and you just really know what you're doing or something.
Yeah, you don't read any of the dialogue.
You know another game I want to randomly bring up? I see it here on this list. Tomb Raider.
Yes. That's another one of those games that you played the demo of a lot before you actually played a real thing.
Tomb Raider's funny, though, because I don't know if people remember this or know this. The Tomb Raider 1, I actually don't have much experience with Tomb Raider 2 or 3, but Tomb Raider 1 very much knew what they were doing. There's a button, I want to say it's like R1 or L1, literally dedicated to doing everything in the game but sexy. Like, if you're walking and you hold L1 or R1, I don't remember which button, instead of walking normally, she starts, like, catwalking. She starts, like, strutting. And then if you go and climb a ledge, you just climb a ledge. But if you climb a ledge while holding one of the shoulder buttons, she fucking, like, goes up really slow. She lifts her ass in the air. And she, like, does, like, a fucking split. And she puts her legs back. And it's just, like, they just full on. There's literally a sexy button in Tomb Raider 1. Every single thing you can do in the game, you can hold a button to do it sexily.
Editor, insert WAP right here.
And I just thinking back on it, that is so absurd.
Yeah, that game was. I used to love Tomb Raider, even though I've never beaten a Tomb Raider game. I've always the way I played them was first I played a demo, and I remember one of the demos you were in your mansion because she was super rich, and you had a butler who would follow you everywhere you went. And I thought that shit was super creepy. So you would like run really, really far away from him, like super far away. And he would just eventually catch up to you and appear with like a tray and like trying to, I guess, help like assist you or whatever you needed. Me and my friend thought that shit was so creepy, but we would do shit where we would try to figure out how to fuck him over. So we did find out that you could lock him in the freezer.
Yes.
Because she had a walk-in freezer. So we found a way to like trap the butler in the freezer, and that way he couldn't follow you anymore. But one time, and this stopped me from playing Tomb Raider games. I'm such a paranoid little fucker. One time we locked him in the freezer, and I turned around and he was there.
And you were like,
nope. I
was
so fucking scared.
You were like, nope, I'm done.
I was so fucking scared.
You were like, wrap this shit up.
Yep, but those games are hard. You get all these different guns and stuff. The Desert Eagle. I remember saying those names of the guns that you would get in the game in class, and people would be like, well, not people, but the teachers would be like, what are you doing at home? And I was like, I play Tomb Raider. What do you mean? I
play Grand Theft Auto and kill people.
Yes, of course. Like, why wouldn't I? What else would I be doing when I go home? Homework? Fuck no. Well, you had like Uzis. You had the Desert Eagle. You had all kinds of Glocks and 9s and all types of ridiculous shit that she would have. But the coolest thing to me was her acrobatics. Like, for whatever reason, her jumping skill, you could just like flip on anything and flip off of anything. You could jump up on the wall and backflip off of it. She would swim. And what's that thing called where it's like sounds that people just kind of get off to?
ASMR?
So Tomb Raider had to be the very first ASMR game ever created, because I don't know if you remember this, but she would have a lot of pleasure sounds, it sounded like. You know,
listen, man.
Even as a kid, I knew she would just have like a lot of
Yes, she did. Speaking of swimming, once again, the sexy button, you could swim normal, or you could hold the sexy button, and she would full fucking frog spread her legs. You'd see, you could damn near, she would just open her legs. So I was like, what is this game?
Yeah. Oh man, good times. But yeah, that's Tomb Raider. So one of my favorite games ever is Mega Man 8 on PlayStation. I think the soundtrack for that game is phenomenal. If you have time, go on YouTube and look up Mega Man 8 OST or whatever, and listen to it. It is so good. That game is really, really fun. If you like side scrollers, like what is that? Is that considered a platformer?
Yeah. Mega Man's a platformer.
Okay, yeah, side scrolling platformer. It's so fun. Super simple, but the idea of getting new powers after every boss battle, after every level was really fun. And then matching up the powers that you get against the other bosses to see which ones like they're all weak to one of them. So it's like a game of rock, paper, scissors. But you get one power and then you use it against, you figure out like, oh, fire works against the ice one, and then the ice one works against the electric one, and the electric one works against the bomb dude or with like Tengu Man or whatever. Mega Man 8, one of my absolute favorite games. And then eventually they made Mega Man Legends, which was like a fully 3D kind of open world version of Mega Man, and that shit changed the game for me a lot.
I unfortunately I did not play Mega Man on the PlayStation at all. My experience with Mega Man, and like I haven't even played the Mega Man X series, which I know is...
Oh my god.
Yeah, I know people love Mega Man X.
Oh my god, I love Mega Man X.
For me, I've only ever played classic Mega Man. So like on the NES or SNES, or wait, no, I think just NES. Like classic Mega Man 1, 2, 3. And there was a Mega Man on Game Boy, like Fat Game Boy. Those were the only Mega Man games I really, really played. So, for example, I've played other games, but not really. Like, my Mega Man experience is mostly in classic Mega Man, so I didn't get to experience the PlayStation ones.
I'm going to rant about Mega Man for a few.
Go ahead.
I already said Mega Man 8 was amazing, and Mega Man Legends was like a 3D version where, I don't know, the whole world was very different because you didn't have Rush like I was used to, your dog, the red robot dog that you have in the older Mega Man games, I guess. But in Legends, you had this little monkey that did this little dance. And if you're on Patreon, you can see me doing a little dance right now. But the little monkey would do this kind of dance. His name was Data. And it was so fucking cool. You had Roll. So Roll was still there. She's like your sidekick girl that, she's a mechanic. She's like super intelligent with everything machinery-wise. No Dr. Light, though. Dr. Light was not in the Mega Man Legends series, as far as I know. But you went around and you would explore like ruins and stuff, and you would collect little pieces, and you would bring them back to Roll, who would then make new weapons for you after you got a certain number of things together. So it was like a lot of exploration that was all optional. Like you could beat the whole game with just your X-Buster, which is just your basic ass, you shoot these little pellet things out. You can beat the whole game like that. There's plenty of speed runs and stuff like that on YouTube. But you can also just like enhance all your equipment by going out into ruins and like collecting things and exploring and excavating and that whole thing. And it was like this whole story. I don't know if any of you guys know about Tron Bonne, but that's where she came from. If you ever played Marvel vs. Capcom 2, I think she might be in Capcom 2.
I think not. I know for a fact she's in 3. I don't think she's in 2.
Okay. Yeah. Tron is the server bot?
Servbot is in 2.
That's what it is. Okay, because I'm like, I know that there's something about Mega Man Legends.
Yeah, Servbot
Marvel vs. Capcom 2
is in MVC 2.
So the Servbot comes from Mega Man Legends, and those things are iconic. Like they're basically the blueprint for the minions that we have today with those little yellow funky things in the jumpsuit. They're literally Servbots, but just monsters. But Servbots were super cute. They come from that game, and then Tron, that whole like she's in Marvel vs. Capcom 3. She comes from that game. She even got her own spin-off game called The Misadventures of Tron Bonne or something like that. And it was really fun. It didn't have Wily as the last boss. Like Wily was usually Dr. Wily and Dr. Light were like, adversaries or whatever in the older Mega Man games. But in Mega Man Legends, it was like a completely different story. And it was really, really fun. I highly recommend that if you have an emulator on your computer or whatever, you try them out. They were really amazing. I actually, every time I get a PSX emulator on my computer, which happens like every couple of years, I just decide that I want to play a bunch of PlayStation games. I always install Mega Man Legends at some point.
Real quick, you were right. I just looked it up. She's in 2 and 3. I knew she was in 3, but I couldn't remember her in 2 for some reason. Okay. But I just looked it up. She is in 2.
All right,
as well as the Servbot.
Nice. Yeah, I didn't remember. Well, I guess I did remember, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's where Tron comes from. And then the X series. Now, here's what's in my head. This is confusing me. I don't remember if Mega Man X4 is a PlayStation 1 game or a PlayStation 2 game. Like I don't know.
I know X started on the SNES. And I know at some point, one of the PlayStation games, I don't know which one, like I said, I didn't play all the X games. I know one of the PlayStation games everybody hates. I don't know which one that is, but yeah.
So, okay, apparently Mega Man X4 is a PlayStation game. So this was my first X game. So I know like it's X4, so it's obviously There's a couple of them, but the first one that I ever played was X4 on PlayStation, and my best friend, I saw him playing it first. I went over his house and he was all into it. And me and him both love Mega Man. We love the music. We love the whole platformer side scrolling thing. But the X series was much harder. Like it was clearly catered to a teenage audience, I would say. Like the regular Mega Man series, like Mega Man 8, was clearly more for like younger people. But the X series was much more difficult, much more intuitive thinking that you had to have to get through some of the levels and to find some of the Easter eggs and stuff like that. But those games were amazing, and that's also where Zero comes from. And Zero is in Marvel vs. Capcom 3. He's the best character in the game. A lot of people love Zero. He's a fucking edgelord. But that was my first time like playing with Zero. I was like, who the hell is this guy? Like I didn't know where he came from or anything like that. He has a sword, not a buster cannon. And every time he slashes an X4, he's like, hoo-ha-huh, hoo-ha-huh. And he just get him to say that a bunch of times. And he spoke all his moves. Like, so at the end of every level, Mega Man would get a power-up. And all of his would be in English, like blatantly. And Zero's would all be in what I believe is Japanese. Like he would just get a bunch of Japanese moves, and obviously, even back then, I thought that the Japanese shit was just cooler. Like it was just cooler. Just hearing it, I was like, oh yeah, like that just sounds amazing. Like anything Japanese just sounded so cool to me. So every time we would get one of his power ups, me and my best friend would just recite them all the time. But Zero was a fucking edgelord, and he was super cool. And there was this one cheat code that you could do in that game. Before you start the game, you got to choose if you want to play as X or as Zero. That's another thing. Mega Man wasn't even really called like Mega Man. He was just called X in that game.
Yeah, his name was X. Yep.
But you got to choose if you want to play as X or Zero before you started the game. And if you did like this certain thing, like up, down, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, or something, and hold left for 6 seconds and press circle, you would start the game off, and X would have a different armor in his inner armor. Like his outer armor is always that blue color, like the classic Mega Man color. But his inner armor would be a different color, and that's how you knew that it went through correctly. What this did was this unlocked this crazy ass armor when you got to like the first level, and the armor was super OP, made the game super easy. It allows you to float, like you could literally fly for a little bit, like glide. It made all of your power-ups that you got from bosses, they got an enhanced version where you could charge up the power-ups that you got from them. You had more life, more defense. Like you could walk on spikes in some games. There was a whole lot of shit to it, but basically it made the game really fun. So it was like a little cheat code thing, but you played it like normally you play the game and then you like do that after or whatever. You could play it like however you want to play it, but the game was like super, super fun. I remember the game being super challenging too, though. Like without that, if you don't use that code to get that crazy armor, that game again is definitely catered more towards older people, because when I would try to play it as a kid, it was just so hard. Those last couple levels, like beating Sigma, who was his enemy in the X series, like Sigma is really difficult at the end. Colonel, just there's a lot of hard boss fights, and I don't know how they scale now. Like I don't know if the super adult version of myself would be able to go back and beat them easily, but I used to love Mega Man games. I'm gonna get off the topic of Mega Man now, but it was, as you can clearly see, Mega Man was a big part of my childhood, and so much of the music from that game just immediately brings me back to when I was a young kid.
They're amazing. The games in general are really good. I also want to say I do miss that because we mentioned it with Spyro and Mega Man. I really like when you beat a game, 100% a game or whatever, and then you get some. Okay, so here's what I'm trying to say. Some games have trouble rewarding the player properly for 100%ing it.
Yes.
Like if you 100% a game, usually the reward isn't really there, other than the fact that you enjoyed the game a lot. But how do you reward a player for like 100%ing a game? They did everything. It's something that's really cool with Spyro, or I don't know if the Mega Man X games did this, but it'd be cool, like you beat the game, and then after you beat the game, they're like, hey, try putting this password in when you put a new game in, right? And then like, they tell you the password, because I know other games did do that. You would beat the game, then they would give you a password. And you would put that password in, and then you would get like the God armor or whatever, and you would do random shit. I like stuff like that a lot, because you do all the stuff in the game, now it's like, all right, here's you just having fucking fun and breaking shit. Yep. And that's cool.
I play for stuff like that too. I think the same thing kind of happened in Crash Bandicoot. Like he would get like special powers after you 100%ed it or whatever. Like he would get
possibly, I don't remember.
Yeah. But I know that there was like all kinds of, special abilities that you got, and you might be able to go through the game with them from the beginning, which that's enough for me. Like it kind of breaks the game when you start the game off with all of your powers. It's like, oh shit.
I love New Game Plus, man. I've played enough JRPGs and shit. Like New Game Plus is my people. Woo, I love that shit.
So surprisingly, I love a lot of RPGs on PlayStation. So many of them, all the Final Fantasies, Legend of Dragoon, Legend of Lagaya. Chrono Cross. I've never played Chrono Trigger in my life, like ever.
Mm.
I've actually watched it play through, and I've seen like at least 4 of the endings. My best friend is one of his favorite games of all time, so it's one of those things where I didn't play it, but I will watch him play it enough to where I know a lot about it.
Yep.
But yeah, that was like a big thing for him. And then Chrono Cross for me, it's a debate still to this day of what has the better opening, Chrono Cross or Final Fantasy VIII. I don't know which opening cinematic I like more, but you know the opening of Chrono Cross, right?
Yeah.
Like that opening cinematic and that opening song.
Yes, indeed.
It is. That song is probably the best music outside of everything else that Nobuo Uematsu produced. I don't know who did the Chrono Cross soundtrack, but the soundtrack for the opening of Chrono Cross is by far one of my favorite songs, period. Like just in all of gaming music, period. That song is amazing. And obviously Premonition and all the other shit from Final Fantasy VIII just holds up really well. That opening cinematic of Final Fantasy VIII that we talk about all the time is really good. But Chrono Cross, an insane game. Did you play Chrono Trigger?
I did play Chrono Trigger, and I've played Chrono Cross, but I have never beaten Chrono Cross.
I've never beaten Chrono Cross. I find that game to be, it's really fun, but it always gets to a point where I get overwhelmed.
Okay, for me, it's just I've played it, and I can't tell you why. I do want to go back and forth, like actually just beat it.
Me too.
One thing with Chrono Cross, I think, and this is stupid because I liked Final Fantasy, but one thing that always, I guess I struggled with getting in for some reason, I just really didn't like that it was a new characters. And I don't really know why, because I played Final Fantasy, and every Final Fantasy is different characters. For some reason, Chrono Cross, I always like hit a wall with it because it was different from Chrono Trigger, and that's really stupid in hindsight. But I remember that being a big issue.
So you talk about the characters, and Chrono Trigger, I remember the characters are blatantly just Akira Toriyama. Like, he is the artist.
Yeah, he does all the artwork, yeah.
Is that true for Chrono Cross?
Well, I wouldn't be able to tell you off the top of my head.
They don't look like Akira Toriyama, though.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm going to say no, just off of, like, the top of my head.
And I love Toriyama's art.
Yeah, well, obviously. You're a big Dragon Ball fanboy.
Yeah.
But, yeah, Chrono Trigger, the characters look like all the Dragon Ball characters. Like, they're clearly heavily inspired by Dragon Ball.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, that's his art style. It's a very recognizable art style. The way he draws eyes, the way he draws hair, very recognizable, very iconic. And Chrono Trigger is one of the most iconic games on PlayStation. And I think it's not originally on PlayStation, though, right? It's on.
No, Trigger is from SNES.
Yep.
Trigger's from SNES. Cross was a PlayStation 1 original.
Yep. But yeah, I never played Chrono Trigger, but Chrono Cross, again, never beat it. I've played it for several hours. I've gotten really far. That game also has like, I don't know, I'm just going to say 30 unlockable characters that you could play as. Like the game literally starts, the first scene of the game, they give you the main character, but then they also give you like 3 other random characters that are throughout the game. They can be any 3 characters in the entire game that are just playable. And it's completely random who you get. And I would just start my game over just to get different ones, even though after you play like the first opening like cinematic or whatever, you lose those characters anyway because then the game kind of starts. So you have to find them out in the real world. But it was always cool because when they would give you a random assortment of the characters throughout the game in the beginning, they would have their abilities pretty much like maxed out. So it was a preview of how they would be when you got them and you maxed them out. Like they would have crazy spells, crazy attacks. That game had really cool specials and things like that. Really cool magic. I hated the magic system because you had to like the area that you cast spells in. If you cast a lightning spell, it would turn yellow. And then you could, every time somebody cast a lightning spell after that, it would get stronger and stronger and stronger.
Mm-hmm.
It was this whole weird fucking system that I don't really think worked too well. But the game looked really good, had really good music, and yeah, it had time travel. So however, some people like time travel, some people hate time travel. I'm always on the fence with time travel.
Yeah, I mean, some things do it well.
Yes, some things do not.
On the note of like RPGs and stuff, I want to talk about a game that most likely almost nobody knows about, just because it's super niche. And then after that, we didn't touch on Tekken much. I want to talk about some Tekken. But on the note of RPGs, have you heard of Alundra or Legend of Alundra? I forget what it's called. I think it's called Alundra. So you do know Alundra.
Never played it in my life, but I've definitely heard of Alundra. And every time, because back then, the way demos worked for PlayStation, they wouldn't just be like a demo for one game. It would
yep.
yeah, the disc would have several games on it, and I remember just seeing Alundra, but never actually doing anything with it or to it. So I didn't even know that it was an RPG, really.
Yeah, so it's basically it's more of a Zelda game. Like it's Alundra is a Zelda game. Like that's what it is. But it like more like it's a 2D Zelda game. Yep. So it but it's so cool. It's a really good game. I've actually never beaten it just because I always run into issues with playing it. Back in the day, it was really hard to like nail down a copy. Like I never owned it. I never saw it in a store. And then in terms of emulation, like I've tried emulating it and I think that they're better now, but I swear, man, for a long time, PlayStation emulators were just really buggy and shit. And at least I've always had a lot of issues getting them to run well. But Alundra is a really cool game if you really like the Legend of Zelda games, and you also like PlayStation 1, I think anybody should go back and give Alundra a try. I'm going to definitely give it another, because I want to actually beat the damn game. Yeah. But it's a really cool game.
It's kind of how I feel about Final Fantasy VI. Like, I just want to play, everyone talks about it, and I want to play it and beat it.
Yeah.
Everyone says it's one of the best Final Fantasy games, but I just never played it. But yeah, there's a couple of RPGs on the PlayStation 1 that are amazing. So they're sleepers, and they're not really mainstream. I don't think a lot of people know about them, but I did briefly talk about Xenogears. Like, I just brought it up. Xenogears is really good. Really cool fighting system where you use square, triangle, circle, and X to kind of do different combos in the middle of battle. And depending on what combination you do, your character will do like a special move. So if you do like square, triangle, square during your turn, your character might do a special move like somersault, and it will like do 3 somersaults, whatever, on the enemy, and it would do a lot more damage. And so that game was really fun. And then it got to a point where you would unlock these gigantic fucking mechs, and your characters would be able to jump into these mechs. And it's really funny because once you get to that point in the game, when you would fight regular field monsters, they would try to attack you, and it'd be like one. like a fucking like a sand rat thing that's just like you encounter it in the desert in the first area. It'll attack you. You'll take literally 1 damage when you're in your mech, and then you'll hit it, and it'll be like just straight nines or whatever. Like, it's really funny how they just put it in perspective. Like, this is not a real enemy to you. But that game was really, really fun. I've never beaten it, but that was another one that my best friend, who's 3 years older than me, he would play it all the time, and I believe he did beat it. He would always talk about like the mechs that you get towards the end of the game, because I think they all got upgraded versions or something, like more powerful versions of their gears, as they were called, Xenogear. But that game was really cool. Legend of Lagaya, another cool ass game with only 3 characters, so you don't have to worry about getting a whole bunch of people. But that game was similar to Xenogears in the sense that in battle, instead of just pressing attack, you would input directions, and those directions were special arts. So if you put in left, right, left, they would do like rushing punch or uppercut.
Yep.
And then if you do like down, right, down, it would do like spiral spinning staircase uppercut or some shit. Like, they would do all these cool ass moves.
I miss games like that, man. I like the RPGs where you also have to know a combo list. Like,
yes,
I think they're pretty. I think they're cool. Like, I don't know, that shit's cool.
I actually, one of the games I played on PlayStation 1 on my emulator, I have it on my MacBook Pro, is Legend of Lagaya, and I got pretty far in it, and I love that game. The only thing I wish is that I could speed up the battles. Like, just to wish that there was like somebody, I don't know, edited the emulator or edited the game to where battle sequences happen almost instantly, because we're in 2021. So like, you can just edit it where that's not like getting into battles in those old RPGs takes a fucking long time. It's one of the reasons why playing Final Fantasy IX, for me, as great as that game is, it's kind of annoying because of how long it takes for just battles to start. It's so cinematic. It takes so long to actually get to the part where you can attack and just kill a boss or kill a monster. And sometimes when you're just running around in the field and that keeps happening, it's like, holy shit.
Yeah, you're just like, all right, come on, let's go.
Like, I'm over it. But I never want to do those. They get like, now the games all have little cheat menu things on the side that says no random encounters or times 4 to speed and things. And I'm just like, I don't want to do that because that's not how I originally played it. But like, that's just a boomer in me. But yeah, Legend of Lagaya was really good. The main character's fire. Then you got this girl who was wind. And then you got a guy who was thunder. So it's like Vaughn, Noah, and Gala. And that was also one of the first games I played that has like the creature capture idea, like Pokemon in a way. You fight against these enemies called Cerus, and they're like these evil spirits that possess like, bodies or whatever. And after you beat them, there's a chance that your character will capture them and be able to use them in battle. It's a really cool thing. Like, just a really cool, especially if you grew up loving Pokemon, this game had that kind of concept because it was a chance that you capture. So it was like, in Pokemon, it's not guaranteed that you or anything. It had that whole system to it that gave you a dopamine rush. Every time you beat an enemy, you would kind of stare at the screen like, oh God, please get this. And then it would cost MP to cast them. And some of them would heal the whole party. Some of them would heal just one person. Some of them crazy powerful attacks. Some of them would freeze enemies or paralyze enemies. So it was really cool. That game, Legend of Lagaya, is fucking sick. If you like old school RPGs and you never played it, I'd recommend Legend of Lagaya. Super hardcore. I want to throw out one more. I have so many, but I'm going to throw out this one. Legend of Dragoon. Really, really fun RPG game. That one is about literally people who get possessed by dragon spirits, and they get this super cool ass armor. They transform in the middle of battle whenever you want. And when they're in that transform state, they embody the element of whatever dragon that possesses them. So like the main character's fire. I don't know why it's always fire with the main character, but even like Red Ranger, I guess.
That's right.
Yeah, the main character's fire. There's a chick named Rose, and she's darkness. There's a chick named Shauna, she's light. There's a guy who has like he's the dragon of wind. There's a guy named Herschel. He's the dragon of thunder, and thunder's like my favorite element. So I always had him on my party. There's a girl named Meru. She's water. And then there's a guy that has earth. He uses like a big ass axe. He's kind of like he's really slow, and he hits really, really hard though. He's like that typical type of character.
Yep.
High defense, high HP, a fucking tank. He's a tank. Hits really hard, really slow character. Earth dragon. But yeah, you transform the dragons. Or not literally dragons, but you transform into dragoons, so they have like dragon-looking armor. Their armor looks insane. Look at the cover of Legend of Dragoon. Like, just look it up. The cover of that game will make you want to play it.
It is out of control.
It looks really cool. The battle system is really unique. You had to time your attacks correctly, so like everyone had arts that you would use in battle, and when you would attack, this little rhythm game happens. And you had to time your attack correctly, you would either get a critical or you would just completely fucking miss. If you didn't attack correctly, like with the right timing, your attack just wouldn't do anything. You wouldn't hit the enemy at all.
Stuff like that. Those are reasons why I love Paper Mario right there. I love shit like that. Of thing? Yeah. I like that a lot.
Yeah. So Legend of Dragoon is amazing. I also love the story of that game, and talking about it right now makes me want to start up a new file because like almost every PlayStation RPG, it has amazing music, and it has some really fucking good cutscenes. It has really convincing villains. Like, there's so many things good about that game. I also like the towns, a lot of the setup. It's really good. Legend of Dragoon is fantastic. I also highly recommend that game. One of my favorites. Really cool battle system. Really cool music. And so you said you wanted to talk about Tekken. So
yeah.
Definitely get into Tekken.
I know you grew up. Your dad got you into Tekken, right?
My dad and my dad's barber. So our barber that used to come to our house to cut our hair, his name was Boo, and he was a nerd. He was a fucking grown ass nerd, and he was insane.
So you
RIP to him.
What was your first Tekken?
My first Tekken is honestly Tekken 1, but my memories of it are so vague that I couldn't tell you much about it. But Tekken 2, I remember whatever one has Angel in it. I remember playing that.
Mm-hmm.
Like June, Jun, or however you say her name.
June. Like, yeah, she's. I'm pretty sure she's in 2.
Yep. So I played that one, and obviously Tekken 3 is the one I remember the most. Is when I got my main, because I used to play the Tekken games, but I didn't really know who I liked the most. And eventually with Tekken 3, I really, because that game was like the graphics were a lot better, the gameplay was a lot more fleshed out, and that's when I realized that Heihachi was my favorite character.
Heihachi's the fucking man.
Like, I fucking love Heihachi in every Tekken game now. Like, that is my character. Isn't he like the boss of one of them or something like that?
He's the boss of Tekken 1.
Okay, I definitely played Tekken 1 in, because he's hard as shit in that game. When you have to beat him as the boss.
Yeah, he's the boss of Tekken 1.
Yep.
Tekken 2's boss is Devil. Tekken 3 is Ogre.
Oh yeah, fucking Ogre, man. That green, he had like the Spartan ponytail looking thing on the back of his head.
Yep, and then when you beat him, you fight True Ogre.
Yes, True Ogre that could jump up in the air and shoot fire out of his mouth.
Yep.
Had a scorpion's tail and all that. I remember Tekken 3. I remember a lot.
Tekken 3 was the shit. So I got into Tekken. My first Tekken was actually Tekken Tag. I played Tekken Tag on the PS2 through my uncle. And then...
Oh, shit. That's your first Tekken?
Yeah, the first Tekken I ever played was Tekken Tag. Because, once again, I didn't really grow up with a PlayStation. So I played Tekken Tag first. But, I go back... I remember one time... I want to say I went to, like, the Poconos with my mom and, like, my mom's boyfriend. Because he had a friend... I don't know. He liked going to the Poconos. So he went to the Poconos a lot. So one time I go to the Poconos with him... I'm bored out of my mind because, like, I don't know, the Poconos suck when you're a kid. And They probably suck now. I don't know. But I went there and I was bored. And I remember I went to a random game store and they had Tekken 3. And I knew I saw it was on the PlayStation 1. But in this time, because I didn't grow up with a PlayStation 1 in my house I could actively use, during the PS2 era, I played a ton of PS1 games. And I went back and got into a lot of PS1 games, like I said earlier, like after they were already out through PS2. So anyway, Tekken 3, I got Tekken 3 at this random game store up in the Poconos. And I ended up playing the shit out of the game. I got every single ending. I did all the modes. Like, I played... So even though I had already experienced Tekken Tag, and Tekken Tag was really fun, I went back and still loved Tekken 3 and played the shit out of it. So Tekken 3 and Tekken Tag were... Basically, my true introduction was Tekken Tag, but I went back and played a bunch of Tekken 3. I never really played 2 and 1.
Tekken 3 has that Force mode or whatever, where...
Yep, Tekken Force,
it's like a side-scrolling mode, and...
Chicken. You would, like, pick up the chicken, and it would be like, chicken.
And you get health back, chicken. Yep, that's going to be the fucking intro now. Chicken. No, it's not. But
it's not going to be PlayStation.
Tekken 3 is amazing. I remember that mode in unlocking Dr. B, who fucking fights you on the ground. You have to get all the way up to him, which is actually not easy to do, just to get up to him. And then when you get up to him, if you lose to him, it feels awful. And I'm only saying this because it happened to me. Don't let it happen to you. Then also that fucking little dinosaur dragon thing.
Gone.
Yep.
He's
another annoying ass character. Yep. He shoots his little fire breath and his little waft and shit he has going on. Super hard to hit because he has a low profile. But yeah, Tekken 3 was amazing. Heihachi, Brian Fury. I had 3 characters. It was Harong, however you say it, Brian Fury, and Heihachi. Those were my 3.
Those are some fire picks. In Tekken 3, my main was Jin, only because my favorite Tekken character is Kazuya. Kazuya Mishima, Heihachi's son, Jin's dad. I fucking love Kazuya. And in Tekken 3, Kazuya's not in that game because, according to the story, spoilers if you care, but it's a fighting game, so fuck
spoiling this 25-year-old game.
But not only that, like, who gives a fuck about fighting game stories? But anyway, Kazuya's not in Tekken 3 because at this time he was believed to be dead, and they introduced his son Jin Kazama, and Jin basically just had Kazuya's fighting style. Like, Jin was just
he has
Kazuya.
The devil gene and everything as well.
So yeah, I played the shit out of Jin in Tekken 3. But I was never really a big Jin fan in the following Tekken games because the thing with Jin, and I feel RIP to Jin fans, I feel sorry for you guys. I feel like they change his fighting style every goddamn game. Oh, really? Every game, Jin's fighting style just gets like tweaked and awkward. I don't think it happens as much anymore, but I just remember like in Tekken 4 he plays a lot differently than he does in Tekken 3 and Tekken Tag, and I did not like him at all in that game. I just went back to my true blue Kazuya. But man, Tekken 3 is amazing.
Great. Tekken's it's one of the main fighting games that I played outside of Smash as a kid. I can't really think of any other fighting games. I mean, Street Fighter, for sure.
Honestly, dude, I was never really a big Street Fighter fan until Street Fighter 4. Like, Street Fighter 2, I don't give a fuck what anybody... That game sucks. I don't care what anybody says. I think it sucked back then. Street Fighter 2 is not fun. That game sucks. Street Fighter Alpha is really fun. I think Street Fighter Alpha is good, and Third Strike is good, but...
Third Strike is amazing.
Yeah, Third Strike is good, but also, I've noticed in my time after becoming like a big fighting game fan that more people talk about liking Third Strike than playing. Everybody acts like they fucking love Third Strike, but nobody plays it.
But so there was a period where all me and my best friend Eric did was play Third Strike. He played Dudley, or what's the guy's name? The Butler?
Butler.
Not Dudley. It's
Dudley. I don't think he's a butler, but Dudley's a boxer.
No. So this guy basically plays like Dudley. He is a counter boxer, like counter puncher. He throws a rose. He's in Third Strike though. He's literally like I call him a butler, but I don't think that he's a butler.
No, I think you're talking about Dudley, not Balrog.
Okay. No, okay, definitely not Balrog. Balrog is Mike Tyson ripoff.
But Dudley comes out of the car. He drives up in a car. He has like nice clothes on.
Like the end, and he
that's Dudley.
About him. Okay,
that's
I got
Dudley.
the right guy.
I knew I wasn't crazy. His taunt is he throws the rose
and it can actually hit you.
Yeah, and he got the trash.
Yes, he says gut that trash and uppercuts.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
like
that's Dudley.
That's when he does a special, and he
Dudley's
has that
sick as fuck.
he has that one move on Patreon. If you're looking at me, he like fucking puts his arms down and kind of acts like he's about to get hit, and if you attack him in any way, he fucking counter punches the shit out of you.
Yep.
Dudley's amazing. My best friend played him, and I hated that character. And I played the electric guy.
Necro.
I'm terrible with names, but
Necro.
I played Necro, and I played Ken. But yeah, Third Strike's
amazing.
Super fucking fun, and also I would say pretty difficult to play on a high level, but on a casual level, which is how I played because I wasn't competitive at all in any Street Fighter game. But on our level, it was, I don't know what came over us, but we just could not stop playing it. But I don't want to get too
because that's not the topic. But yeah, for me,
fighting games back in the PlayStation era was basically like, Smash on N64, Tekken 3 a lot, and then whatever Street Fighter. I don't know if so back then it was like those X-Men versus Street Fighter games.
Those games are fucking fun.
So that's what I'm talking about. Marvel Superheroes, for example.
Yes.
There's a game called Marvel Superheroes that had Blackheart in it, Captain America, Shura Gurav, the fucking eyeball. Those games were actually amazing.
Those games are so good.
Yes. So that's what I'm talking about when I say there were real fighting games back then.
Yeah. No, 100%.
I really did like them.
I liked those games. I just hate Street Fighter. I think Street Fighter 2 sucks. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
But Street Fighter 2 is far before.
Yeah, it is. But
you're going out of your way.
It's a bad game.
We're in the PlayStation 1 episode. That game that was not a.
I'm sorry.
It's fine. But yeah, get your rocks off. It's fine.
No, but but I will say Third Strike. So I did get to play the X-Men versus Street Fighter and Marvel vs. Capcom 1. I played those games and Marvel Superheroes. I actually did play those games prior to Street Fighter 4, and those games were all really good. I liked all of those games. But I didn't play, specifically talking about Street Fighter, I didn't play Third Strike, similar to not really getting into a lot of PS1 games outside of PS2. I didn't play Third Strike until after I played Street Fighter 4. I just didn't really have access to it. I don't even think I knew it existed, really.
I don't even know what system it comes out on. I don't know if that's a PS3 game or a PS2 game.
I think it's on, Third Strike's on Dreamcast, and it might be on PS2, but it's on Dreamcast.
Okay, I had a Dreamcast, so that's probably why I remember it. But I played it a lot, but I don't remember what system I played it on. I can't, because I know it wasn't on just one system, like you said. It's definitely on more than one.
Yeah, I think it's Dreamcast and PS2.
Yeah,
and arcades, obviously, but
but
Marvel Superheroes, all those games are actually just fucking amazing.
Yeah. So another game that was head to head was Twisted Metal. That whole series, I love the series on PlayStation. Sweet Tooth, the fucking ice cream truck, cheating ass character that you could pick.
Twisted Metal's really fun.
Yes, Calypso, which was always he shot a nuke. His special was shooting a fucking actual nuke. There was Man, who was usually a tank from hell, like a demon in a tank. There was one of my favorite characters named Spectre. His car could go in.
I definitely don't remember all these characters' names.
Oh, look at me just reading them off of my off the top of my. These are the top of the dome.
I definitely don't remember their names. Once again, I got Twisted Metal. I don't remember which one. I want to say Twisted Metal 3 maybe. I got it from a what are those things called? Not a garage sale, but it was like a, I don't know, it was like in a basement of a church.
Like a flea market?
Like a flea market, yeah. That's the word I was looking for. I got Twisted Metal, I want to say 3. I remember the disc was green. Like, not green, but the front of the disc where, the art would be on the disc, it was, silver and, green, I want to say. So whichever Twisted Metal that is, if you guys know. I got that Twisted Metal for PS1 from a flea market. And that was the Twisted Metal I played the most. I played the shit out of that one. But I definitely don't remember all the characters' names like you do.
So me and Eric, we just played Twisted Metal a lot. He would come over and, we did, like I said, we did a lot of one-player games. We literally would watch each other play Legend of Dragoon, all the Final Fantasies, Legend of Lagaya, Xenogears. We would watch each other play those games. But then, obviously, are you bored? Because we can just play something else. And we would pop in those versus games that both people can play. Twisted Metal was one of them. And Twisted Metal was even a game where you can co-op. So he would be on the top screen, I would be on the bottom screen or whatever. And, we would pick our characters and go throughout the story mode. And that was really fun. We run that back a couple times. And I don't know. I love that series. It was one of the only times where I enjoyed playing as a car outside of Diddy Kong Racing.
Yeah, like a car game. Yeah, Twisted
Metal. All of them had different speeds. They all had different powers. I was saying before, Spectre was one of my favorite characters to play as because they went intangible, like invisible, like literally on other people's screens, they can't see you. And I would always, it's really funny on since Eric and I can both see each other's screens, we're playing on the same TV, but he's on the bottom screen, I'm on the top screen. You could literally, I would drive past him and be like, "Yo, did you just see me?" He's like, "No, I didn't." I'm like, "Oh, I literally just rode past you."
That's fucking
It was funny
great.
because as I would ride past him, I would also look at his screen and see, like I knew he couldn't see me, but it was just funny that I just like ride past him and stuff. But
Shit like that is so fucking cool.
Yeah, just really cool. Like I don't know, I love those games. What else was there?
Can I interject?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm looking at this list. What is this fucking Spyro skateboarding game? Do you see this shit? What is that?
Where Spyro skate?
If you look on the wallpaper that we have.
Okay, at the bottom of it.
Yeah, there's a Spyro skateboarding game apparently. I have no idea what that is.
I don't know what the fuck that is. I couldn't tell you. I don't even know if that's real. So we're gonna pass. I'm a pass on that.
Did you play Tony Hawk Pro Skater?
Not until it came on Xbox and you could play your own music. That which I think is Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3. That game is revolutionary. And if we ever do an Xbox episode, even though probably won't happen, but if there was an Xbox episode, the fact you could play your own music and skate, like I don't even care for skateboarding at all. Honestly, I don't. But playing Nelly's fucking album that came out at that time, like "Get Me to Paris, I need to Paris, so I can get the rocking in my Air Force Ones." Like playing that and skating in the fucking skate parks was so fucking fun to me. So that's my memory of Tony Hawk Pro Skater, but it was not the one on PlayStation. It was definitely the one on Xbox where you could change the music.
Okay, yeah. I mostly played Pro Skater on GameCube. I think it was Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3, and my most vivid memory of that game is that there's a Redman song on there, and they censor the word PlayStation 2. It's the lyric where he says "similar to the new PlayStation 2," and he just says "similar to the new," and it just gets censored because it's on the GameCube.
Damn, when your competition is that fierce,
they're just like, no.
No free ad for you guys.
That shit was funny as hell.
I totally get it. They didn't pay for that advertising.
Hell no.
Another game, this is probably a sleeper. I don't know how many people are aware of Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver.
Dude, okay. I haven't played it yet, but my good friend Anthony, who I also stream with, he has been praising to the high heavens Legacy of Kain for years now and have been begging me to play it. He says all the time, like, the Legacy of Kain series is one of the only series he's ever seen do time travel and it actually makes sense and be really, really good. I don't know I don't know exactly what happens, but that's a game I definitely got to get on because I've been told for so long that I have to play Legacy of Kain.
It's another one of those games. It kind of set the foundation for those beat 'em up type games where you get swarmed by enemies and you have to crowd control.
Mm-hmm.
It has that aspect to it, but it also the big part of the storyline, whatever, spoilers, whatever, but like it starts off with betrayal. The whole storyline is basically that I guess he's like an angel or a devil or something, and the main guy who is like, I guess, the king, let's just call him the king. He looks really cool. He looks like a demon himself. The main character in the beginning of the game, like the beginning cutscene, he sprouts these gigantic, beautiful wings. They look really, really nice. And I'm assuming that because his wings look so nice and they're so beautiful and everyone's in awe of them, the main king guy, he's like walking around the main character in the beginning cutscene and he's like looking at them and he's like admiring them like everyone else. And then he fucking grabs them and rips them off. And like kicks the main character down into like the pits of hell or whatever. So the game it starts off immediately with betrayal. And it reminds me of how God of War, it's like a game about betrayal. Like Devil May Cry, like it kind of has that. Like I feel like vibes, those games are kind of inspired by Soul Reaver. Like Soul Reaver set the stage for those games to be successful later on with that storyline and that kind of style. That crowd control. There's like 6 enemies on screen, and you have all these moves that kind of like sweep areas and stuff like that. And you have to learn how to use your resources and powers to beat a big crowd of enemies. Like if you're into that type of thing, then Soul Reaver was that. It was fun. It's fun. I never beat any of those either because they were kind of hard. but they were fun.
I need to play those games. I've been told for so long I got to play them. I got to get on those.
Yeah. Another cool game is Tomba. This is a game where I watched it played more than I actually played it myself.
Is that the one with like the jungle guy?
The jungle guy with the pink hair. Yup.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tomba was pretty cool. It's like a side scroller, and you get all kinds of little powers and stuff like that. And it was fun. It was just a fun game. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we're missing from the PlayStation 1 era. I'm sure there's tons of stuff that we could talk about, but yeah, like Metal Gear Solid. I didn't really play that one either. Like I did and I didn't. I played a bit of it, but I kind of memed it when I played it. I would just get myself killed and hear Snake, Snake, Snake. Like I would do that so often. I don't know why, but I would just get him. I would get him killed in obscure ways.
When you're a kid, weird things entertain you.
Yeah, I would be a box and just walk around and like somebody kick over my box and I'll fucking get caught and they'd be like, Snake, Snake, Snake. And I don't know. I would just run that a million
Gex
times.
the Gecko was on PlayStation, right? That was PlayStation.
What?
Gex.
Okay, I actually did play one of those games and I feel like I even beat it, but I cannot for the life of me remember much about it.
Yeah, Gex is basically a 3D platformer. You're a gecko, and there's a shit ton of movie references in it.
Oh, God, he's really funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's sarcastic as hell. He has a lot of jokes that probably go over kids' heads. I remember Gex.
Mm-hmm.
I like those games.
I definitely grew up loving like 3D platforms and shit. So I definitely played Gex the Gecko.
I completely forgot about Gex until you said that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was on PlayStation 1, the original one.
Yeah, I feel like it was. And if it's wrong, they'll tell us. And, just drag us. It's whatever.
Drag him. Don't drag me.
No, drag us. We're a unit.
All right.
We work together.
I guess that's true.
When we duel people for the Patreon and stuff like that, we're a team. So we have to be a team when we get dragged too.
That's true.
So when we're wrong,
I can't wait for the first person to challenge me. You're basically just still going to be playing Frazier. It'll be good.
What an asshole. I said, I can't wait for the first person to challenge me. You got me fucked up. You think I'm not going to tag you in. But yeah. Did you ever play Final Fantasy Tactics? Because I know you love strategy RPGs.
So, Tactics, I first got in the GBA one, which is completely different. I played FF Tactics, the GBA one first, and I fucking love that game. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't until years later that I knew there's a PS1 one, but I just assumed they were the same game, and the GBA one was just like, GBA version of it. I didn't find out till way later that the PS1 FF Tactics is actually a different game and its own game altogether. And so I never played the PS1 FF Tactics. That's a game that I've been dying to get to. But I have a lot of fond memories and loved the Game Boy Advanced one. But sadly, just because for so long I assumed I played it. Because I was like, I played that on the Game Boy Advance. And it was just years and years and years and years and years before I ever found out that the PS1 version of the game is a completely different game.
Yeah. I played the PlayStation 1 version. I only played a couple chapters of it, and then I would watch, again, my good friend, I watch him play through the whole game and get all the classes and stuff like that, and, plot all the maps. I never really was big into strategy RPGs. I'm not going to sit here and cap like I was a huge strategy RPG person. You got me into Lagaya, which I loved, the very first one, for Laharl. Is he in the first one?
Game. Yeah, he's the main character.
Okay. So I'm pretty sure I played the first Gaia 10 years ago when I first met you. Well, 11 years ago when I first met you. And I loved it. Like, I actually played it a lot. Now, a lot is relative because the two people who I know who actually played Gaia put in hundreds of hours. And I would say I probably put in about 50.
Yeah.
But I really, really enjoyed the first Gaia game I played for a strategy RPG. Very fun. Much more colorful than Final Fantasy Tactics was. And I've never played a Fire Emblem game before. I barely play Final Fantasy Tactics. And I think that those are like, when I think about strategy RPGs, it's just Tactics, Gaia, and Fire Emblem. Those are the only ones that I really know about.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never really been too big into them. I just prefer your typical turn-based, Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, 10. Those are the ones that I primarily like that's what I primarily
like. The standard JRPG.
Yeah, which is probably why I also like Bravely Default 2, Legend of Dragoon, Legend of Lagaya, Xenogears. All of those are turn-based RPGs. I prefer that a lot more. But I appreciate people who are really good at those strategy RPG games. Like it does take a level of skill to literally plot out how you're going to win a battle, looking at the field and positioning your characters and setting up team attacks and all that. It's an art. It's an art.
Those games are so fun.
Yep.
Ugh.
All right. Well, we are approaching the 2-hour mark, so we can start to wrap this up.
Okay.
Kenny, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about on the PlayStation 1?
I think so. I think we covered a lot of the biggest games. We talked about different things.
The controller, the
controller, the boomerang. The one small little like story, I guess. This isn't super relevant to PlayStation 1 itself, but something that I guess it is. It's pretty cool. The PS1 early on had an attachment where you could attach a screen to the top of it. I don't know if anybody remembers that. Yeah, there was an attachment where you could hook a screen up to the top of the PS1. So another thing before I had a PS1, another way that I played it a lot was my friend Cheyenne, his older brother Ray, had the PS1, and I remember playing his PS1 through that attachment thing, like the little screen that would flip up.
Yeah.
I remember playing the PS1 like that, and that was just a really cool. I don't know. It's just a really cool attachment. Like it made it like pseudo portable.
Yep. Also, the PlayStation and the whole like PSX, that was one of the first consoles that started introducing the whole slimming of the console. After a while, they started to release like there at one point a system called the PS1 came out, and it was a white version of the PlayStation, and it was super small, like tiny.
Yep.
And I ended up getting one of those. I don't even know why I got it, but I noticed that it played games better than the regular gray big box PlayStation.
Yeah,
it was much lighter and it was much faster. And some games that literally would not load on my PlayStation, my regular PlayStation, will load on my PS1. I don't know if they improved something about the processor or the engine or the eye. I used to talk about the fucking eye that's in when you lift the lid of a PlayStation. You can see like the little eyeball, and you could play around with it, which you probably shouldn't do. But I used
probably
to play
should not.
Yeah, but I was a kid, so I did everything like that. In fact, this brings me to a funny ending story here. My first PlayStation, the way it broke was my little cousin who lived with me at the time. He poured milk in my PlayStation.
Oh my God. You just fucking sent me through a shock. So, you have a cousin, a younger cousin, that broke your PlayStation 1 because he poured milk into it?
Yep.
I have a cousin, a younger cousin, who broke my GameCube. His name is Nick. He was on this podcast because he poured milk into my GameCube.
That is fucking wild. Why do kids like to pour specifically milk in game systems and
what the fuck? Them? What are the chances of that?
My dad tried to clean it out and like dry it and all types of shit, but I think at that point, that PlayStation was $100. Like the system cost $100. So after my dad tried to like get it to work and it just wouldn't work, it would not load up any game at all. Like after the milk situation, we dried it out after like a day or something, probably put it in rice, all that nonsense. It never worked again. And then he just went up to GameStop and just got me a new PS1. And that might be how I ended up with that little white PS1. Yeah.
Amazing. That's actually amazing. Holy shit. That's incredible. I'm thrown off by that.
Yeah, no, it's kind of wild. But I mean, you and I have lived virtually the same life as well as
so
me and a lot of other people who listen to this, like Garen, he's one of our patrons and one of my good friends. But like a lot of the stories he relates to as well, because we're all around the same age too. But yeah, milk right in my system. Fuck my PlayStation, I guess.
Holy shit.
Yep.
And there it is.
But all right, this wraps up episode 21 of the IMNerd Podcast. We are officially able to drink. So this is the 21st episode.
Or we officially won a game of NBA Street, because those games played at 21.
Okay, cool. I like the NBA Street, actually. So, yeah. But if you guys enjoyed this, follow us on Apple Podcasts and subscribe to us on Spotify and all of that. Check out our YouTube channel, I Am Nerd. Check out our Patreon if you want to, assist in any kind of way. There's also exclusive benefits you guys can unlock by subscribing to us on Patreon. And if you just want to support, we have a $3 tier. That's just a support tier, and you get access to our Discord. But yeah, if you like the I Am Nerd, also we have a Facebook page, and you could follow that as well, or give that a like, and that will give you anytime we release something new, it kind of goes on the Facebook page first. So if you want to stay up to date or you just want to show support, help us grow.
And a Twitter, which hasn't been active yet, but there is a Twitter.
We do have a Twitter, but that is gonna. At this point, we need a manager. We need someone, in all seriousness, like in all very seriousness, Kenny and I fucking need two things. We need a manager and an editor because editing these podcasts is a job in itself. But you know, we're still in the early phases where we're managing like our regular life and then also the podcast on top of it. But it's been really fun. Like we're 21 episodes in, and I never would have thought that I would be a content creator at any point in my life. I told myself that just wasn't for me. And honestly, I don't want to get too deep on you guys, but like this feels like what I'm supposed to be doing. I love this so much. I love talking and I love nerd shit. I also love a lot of things outside of just this. Like like I always say, I love fashion and all types of other stuff that, you know, we'll talk about maybe another time. But like this feels like what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. Like when I am dead and gone, this will be one of the things that I left behind, besides obviously being, you know, a Yu-Gi-Oh player who like, you know, did whatever in Yu-Gi-Oh.
The other cool thing is all those other things that you like fashion, this is an outlet to talk about those.
Yep, that's true. It is. It's really cool how it all, I don't know. I think all of us spend a lot of our time trying to figure out what our purpose is and what we're supposed to do with life. And, you know, again, not to get too deep, but like, you know, I'm an accountant and it pays really well. Like it affords me the lifestyle that I want. And I have a good work-life balance and all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, I don't necessarily think that I grew up wanting to do this, wanting to do accounting for the rest of my life. Like, I don't think that that's what I really saw for myself as like, this is what my dream job or anything like that. And most people don't get to do their dream job, but like this doesn't even feel like a job. Like the podcasting thing honestly just feels amazing to me. Just talking with my friends, having people come on the podcast, discuss their own personal experiences. I love it so much. And yeah, I just wanted to kind of put that out there because to me, this is not just like, I don't know, something that it's more than just a hobby to me. It's like actually feels like what I'm supposed to be doing.
I couldn't agree more, and there's nothing I could say to really add to what you said. I agree 100%, and I don't want to diminish your beautiful words by adding my filth.
Oh, geez.
Well, but no, I agree 100%. I do feel the same way.
Yeah, and I know. I mean, you've been doing content creation for a while. You've been streaming for years now, and I've been watching that and that whole journey, and it's really cool to see. Like the world has changed so much, and I think this is really fucking cool that we can. The pandemic has shown me that you can literally put whatever you want out into the world from your home, and I don't know, something about that is just so cool to me. You couldn't even fathom this world before.
Not at all.
But all right, I'm gonna leave you guys. Peace.
Beautiful. So long, gay Sephiroth.
All right.